we're going to start with what is called a contra dance, which is simply to walk in a circle to welcome Maggie. Maggie and Nancy are contra dancers. And it's a beautiful welcome dance because it's simply, we walk in a circle and then each of us passes each one and we all see each other, and Maggie will feel your presence and you'll get to greet Maggie.
I believe this experience has affected me more than anything else I have experienced in my entire life. If I were to plot out my life in a timeline, emphasizing all the big events, like they do in magazines, it would be 1968 born, 2004 Smith College, May 10th, 2006, close friend suffered stroke.
Yesterday, saw the extensive damage to her brain. Very frightening.
What do you think Margaret would really want?
One doctor said,
Let her go. Absolutely.
I remember seeing her on the floor when the paramedics came.
the doctor said you should let her go.
She's not there. There is nothing more that the trauma unit can do for her.
I'm angry that Margaret had a stroke.
I remember when I called Katie and I had to tell her what happened, and I was crying and I felt like an awful person for breaking the news to her that way. I love you, Maggie. I love you, Maggie. Sometimes I think if I say it enough, it will finally be okay.
Do you really want Margaret to live this way? The quality of her life? Do you really want her to be in this state that she's in now?
It's 3 days. I'm thinking of my Margaret. She's alive, she's running, she's jumping, she's dancing. I'm not thinking of the state she's in. I see many people looking at her with pity and with the certainty that the way she is now is the way she will remain. I have the crazy idea that she's listening and trying to speak. I'm embarrassed to say these things because I know that they are not rational. How she sometimes did not feel that she was good enough, or that she knew enough, or that she was really skilled at any one thing. And I wonder what she's thinking about her situation now. What I know is that she was so good at living and being a good and kind and loving person. The card that I love the most is one she sent herself in September 2005. Her message to herself: This card is to remind me of a good day I had. This card is a reminder for when a bad day arises that there will be good days. Learning is key, but fun also helps. Buddhist prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the sacred joy that is beyond suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free of grasping, hatred, and ignorance. And may they be aware of the equality of all that lives. We lived in Richmond. Margaret and I lived there for her whole childhood. We had the house for 22 years. There was a tree in the yard that she climbed, and my neighbor's house was there, and he was on the roof of his garage, and Margaret was in her tree, and they talked to each other because they were both at the same height. The cat would visit Maggie in the tree. It was just one of those funny things. I would let her climb the tree, but my mother would come and visit and be like, "Oh my God, she's up in the tree, oh no!" So that was part of our every summer life, watching the Block Island ferry go by our house and waving to everyone, or being on the ferry and telling grandparents or parents that we were going to be on the ferry so they could wave to us. You know, it was sort of a fun ritual to do that. When I hear from her nurse that Maggie is moving in time with the music, I am sure that Maggie is having some sort of inner life. Every year for Christmas, Margaret and her father and I would make a card. I don't know what year this one is, but someone brought this to Margaret in the hospital. Her eyelids have fluttered, and her mouth is moving in such a way that makes the doctor feel there are messages going through her brainstem to her brain. I wanted to tell you all what is in store for Maggie and I in New York City. She will have an MRI on Monday. She will get hooked up to an EEG machine, as well as be in a room where she can be videotaped. On Tuesday, she will have a PET scan done. On Wednesday, she will have an fMRI, which is the test when they will have her listen to my voice and also will ask her to think about several things that she likes to do and about something physical. And they'll see how her brain responds to those things and where, which will tell them if she hears and if she understands. The doctor asked her to move her eye down if she could see me. There was people all around the bed waiting for her to answer, and she moved her eye down. And I have to tell you, that was the most amazing moment for everyone. People had tears in their eyes because that was the moment that I knew after 18 months that she really was there. I had to tell everyone that my daughter saw me today.
Well, it's really wonderful to see this story in a dance form because it kind of shows in a way that is easier than words how hard that moment is right after someone has an accident or a crisis, as Margaret and Kathy both have had, and how hard it is to figure out what to do. And I guess the dance and the words showed kind of a little bit in a window into what that's like, perhaps for Margaret and also for me. And I have been able to communicate now with Margaret, but she doesn't always. The only way she can communicate now is with my questions. So as good as my questions are, she can answer yes or no to them. So I guess that's the thing I wanted to clarify. That little bit at the end of the dance said what she was doing in New York. And when she went to New York, they did find out that she was fully conscious and could understand my voice and could see me and could understand what is going on around her, which we didn't know before that. So it was very exciting.
It was a wonderful story, especially the way Dr. Schiff, that was the first time I heard it when we met with John, as you told the story of how Dr. Schiff found.
Well, I think because it had been 18 months, and so Dr. Schiff is the person in New York that met Margaret, and he could immediately when he saw her MRI, without the fMRI and the PET scan and the EEG, that her brain was perfect. In other words, there was nothing that indicated that any part of her brain except her brainstem was damaged. And after 18 months, if her brain wasn't functioning, it would have atrophied in some way, and her brain was fully active. And so he said, I know she's in there, so we have to find a way to communicate with her. We have to, she's there, I know she is. And there had not been any doctor that was so certain with Margaret saying, Margaret, I know you're in there, we have to find a way to communicate. And he tried all the same tests that all the doctors had tried for 18 months. But because he was sure, I mean, I can't say, because Margaret didn't say, well, because he was sure, that's why I answered, but she answered because he asked her in a way that was positive.
And did you, I thought I heard you say he just pulled out his credit card? And
No, his license.
Oh, his license.
He wanted to have something for Margaret to follow with her eye, and he didn't want to wait. He didn't want to, well, let me get the right, red card or whatever it was that neurologists would have. So he just took something out of his pocket and just had her follow it, and she just did, just like that. And so then he asked her 10 questions that were yes or no questions, and she answered them, I think 7 out of 10, which is considered statistically. I mean, he knew that she understood. And so that was the beginning of her being able to communicate in some small ways.
And what was the other test about, the swimming or?
Right, well, so Margaret has actually gone back to New York twice since that first visit, because there was another fMRI study that had been done in England, and they sent the protocol or whatever, and it was a woman that had been considered in a vegetative state, and they asked her to play tennis. Not actually play, but think about playing tennis, and a certain part of the brain is activated. And so they want Margaret to try this, but she didn't play tennis, so they said, well, let's try swimming instead. So they asked her to swim, and she could. And in her brain, the fMRI could show the particular area of the brain that was activated by that movement of her arm, which is the same as playing tennis and swimming. And so then she went back a third time and did other kinds of work with them of thinking about, it got even simpler, just moving her right hand. I think it was just moving her right hand, and they could see the place in her brain that did that, and they were able to use that as her yes answer. So if she wanted to say yes, either she thought about swimming or she moved in her mind her right hand, and she was able to do that. So now they're setting up a room in New York where they're going to have some kind of, I don't know what, electronic equipment where they're trying to have that thought of her moving her right hand control a computer. I don't know. I haven't been there yet, but there is a room, and she is going to go, and so we'll see. That'll be the next story to tell.
So, is she better at the yes/no answers with the thought about the arm movement than with the eye movement? You said 70% with the eye movement. Is she even better than that with the?
Well, that was just the very first time she tried it.
Okay.
So since then, it's been 4.5 years.
Right. Okay.
And she's had speech therapy for several years, and she has peaks and valleys, and she's had times where she hasn't answered anything. And if you met her, you would say she can't answer because she's depressed or angry or frustrated. She has a computer that she can use with her eye movement, but if her sitting in her chair is slightly different, then her eye doesn't meet up with the computer, so then she can't answer. I mean, talk about frustrating. When she knows she can do it, but because of some small, or the computer gets jarred and so it's a half an inch. Is that frustrating? Is that what you, Kathy? Yeah. So I guess we don't know, but if she had access to that technology where she could just use her thinking, because Margaret can't open her eye herself. So she is more disabled, so someone has to hold her eye open in order for her to use her eye. And after 45 minutes or even less, I mean, she gets tired. So then you wait an hour and then another 45 minutes, but she has to have a partner. There isn't any way she can have any communication unless she has a skilled partner who knows how to ask yes or no questions and also is insightful enough to figure out what question to ask. Like, how are you feeling today? You can't ask that. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you in pain? Are you emotionally in pain or are you physically in pain? Is it your head? Is it your foot? Is it your arm? Is it your heart?
How about the motivation? I thought that was an interesting story too. Motivated by the interview she was doing?
Oh yes, that's right. So recently, Margaret had her 5th college reunion. Well, I guess a year and a half ago, but it seems recently. And it was the last big thing that Margaret and I did together that was motivating because we had this computer and we wanted to use it. And so we were able to develop with Kate, who is here, her occupational therapist, friend, volunteer, these little scripts on the computer that would create a sequence of a set of questions. So, oh, how are you? Like Margaret can look at the screen and then those words will speak. And then there's a pause and then she'll say, have you played Frisbee lately? Because it happened to be a Frisbee group. And then the next question is, have you done any traveling? So that she could direct, anyway, I guess that, because she really wanted to go and she really wanted to communicate with her friends, then she used the computer perfectly. I mean, she was very motivated to work as hard as it took with that frustration and imperfection. But then after that, it was a letdown and she had a gap. And now we're doing art therapy with her teacher who's here, Janine. And so that is interesting because she can't move her hand or anything, but we move her hand for her and she paints and she laughs and cries and gets really excited and flushed, and it's motivating and it's motivating for me
And she's being productive.
And she's being productive, and she has a business, and she'll earn money, and will use it to hire her art therapist to keep it. So it's really good. It's like a perfect circle. So, but I guess it's like finding the thing that will motivate her to communicate. Like she wants to pick the color of the background of her painting, so she'll answer, because she doesn't want it to be a color she doesn't like. But if it were something else, like, well, what socks do you want to wear today? Like, I don't care. Like it's not motivating enough. I don't know. Thank you for asking these questions. It's really good.
Beautiful stories, yeah.
I have stories, but yes, go ahead.
Is there any chance that Maggie can spell?
You know, I think she could spell. She can read, because we've given her questions, and she, without speaking them, and she's answered them by reading. We've tried several different keyboards, but with the eye movement, the precision that she has to select a letter. We did work with Dr. Hockman and with
The acrylic board?
No, I need to talk more.
Kathy has an acrylic board.
Yeah.
But it does take control. As she moves her pupil, we can follow her pupil movement and read out her message.
Yeah.
Did people hear that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that Kathy is much more alert than Margaret is.
Yeah.
I think that's where the difficulty for Margaret is that she has limited windows. I think she's awake, but she can't. The act of controlling her eye movement is more limited. But we definitely, in fact, recently I worked with her on the computer, and she did pick out 4 letters that we asked her to pick out. This is a big breakthrough. So you know, she I think that's.
Well, the other thing, the way we started with Kathy is we would say letters, say them. We would have the alphabet broken down.
Like in Diving Bell and the Butterfly.
Right, exactly. And then we graduated to the acrylic board.
Yeah.
That she and now has her own computer.
And it's with eye.
It's pupil movement, but Kathy has very good control of her neck and head. And,
Yeah.
it's just neck down.
Yeah.
Or actually, okay down.
Yeah. Well, so much to learn.
Are there any other questions that people might have? Yes?
So you had this doctor in the experiment at Columbia, right, that showed that Maggie irrefutably was aware and could answer things, but you previously had other doctors who said she's not there, she's not answering.
Right, well, her diagnosis up until then was that she was in a persistent vegetative state.
Right, and so after the experiment at Columbia, did you still have any doctors who stuck to what they thought and said, I still believe that she's in a vegetative
Now
state?
she's considered minimally conscious. No one will say anything more than that she's minimally conscious, because it's hard to test someone's full cognition in this state. Like, I mean, we know she can read, and we know she can make choices out of I'd call her locked in, but doctors won't conclusively say that. But she's definitely not in a persistent vegetative state by any doctor's definition. Even though a neurologist that she met off the street might do the test on a particular day, and she wouldn't be able to do anything.
I wonder, how does she let you know about her needs, like bodily functions or appetite? Either she's hungry or...
Yeah, she actually has a feeding tube. She has a feeding tube, so she doesn't eat. And she really doesn't have any way to tell someone if she's wet, so the caregivers have to take care of her. So she really can't, if a caregiver gets to know her and begins to have a rapport with Margaret, it's easy to know how she's feeling or that she's uncomfortable. I mean, like a mother knows an infant, they're not speaking, but you know that something's the matter. So Margaret has many, many ways. I mean, and now she laughs. So if she's laughing, she's not angry, you know, I mean, and then she cries, she moans, you know, she has ways of saying, I'm uncomfortable, but to know specifically, it's hard. It's you just like a mother does. You guess the few, you know, it's, you take care of the basic needs and then you pursue further the best you can.
Okay, we'll make this our last question.
Great.
What did she major in when she was at school?
She was a Spanish major, but also pre-vet. So she was kind of doing a lot of different things at once. And she went to Smith College. So.
It was, you knew that, we've said in the program, it was the day before?
Well,
or-
actually, it was her May 10th, which was about 10 days before her graduation. She was finishing a paper.
May 10th?
May 10th.
Kathy just made that.
Yeah. So it was, and she was in a room and she had a single, she was on the floor. They found her eventually.
Did she get to hang out with animals?
Well, at Middleborough, they had those wonderful pet days where they had baby animals, and so Margaret we'd play with cats and dogs and chickens and everything.
I would like to say that to kind of talking about motivation and talking about the animals.
Do you mind standing up? This is Janine,
Estosa.
Estosa, Ginny, yeah.
or her art therapist, art teacher, partner, whatever.
Well, talking about motivation, you know, when I work with Margaret, I try to connect with the things. I like to know as much about her and what she used to do as possible and what she was interested in. And so having the connection of veterinary medicine with her, that was a good one because I was married to a veterinarian for 20 years and I had some bones. So I brought in my horse hip bone and some other bones. And the last time I saw her was a week ago, and let her feel them, and we talked about that. And so, and then we worked at the fact that she likes cats, and so we've done all the cat paintings. And I always start with that. What are you interested in? You know, if we're showing her pictures, we're waiting for her to let us know which one she likes, or the colors, which colors. And so I think that's a really good way to motivate her.
Thank you. John Simeral is now going to talk. He's at the BrainGate, and we will, afterwards, you'll still get a chance to talk to Nancy and get more questions answered.